The main reason we get this is to help us to knock on our door and say, do tshuva, become a better person, more pure.
Wherever you get your podcasts from, or our own website, prismoftorah.com. This is the Prism of Torah with Rabbi Saf Aaron Prisman.
Shalom to everyone. In this week's parsha, Parshas Tazria Metzora, I want to specifically talk about Parshas Metzora, where I found only today a Moredike or a Chaim HaKadosh I want to share with you. Before we begin the questions about the Metzorah, I just want to share with you that as we spoke in earlier times, in Lashon HaKodesh we have hints in the word itself about what the word represents. And that is a lot of times called notrikoin, like the notrikoin for the word zaken is ze kana chochma, that this person is called a zaken, not like the simple idea that it's someone old, but rather it's someone old, but someone that has acquired wisdom. Chochma, ze kana chochma. So also in Metzorah we have two ideas hidden in it that represents where the Metzorah is coming from. Hare, we know the Metzorah is someone that spoke Lashon Hara about someone. Where is that coming from? What was the motivation for the person to do that? So first of all, it can be tzarut ayin, which means you're always looking badly at your fellow Jew and you're thinking to yourself, why does he deserve this? Why does he deserve that? And instead of being happy for him, you're tzar ayin, which is a horrible midah. And the other hidden message about where Metzorah is coming from is motzi shemra, that he gave his friend a bad name. So it represents the idea of the word, not the motivation for it, but what it actually does. That is, you're motzi shemra on your fellow Jew. You're giving him a bad name out there. Al kol panim, back to the vote. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh asks several questions. The parsha starts off, Vaydaber Hashem u'Moshe le'emor, Zois tiyeh toras haMetzorah. These should be the laws of the Metzorah. On the day he becomes pure, beyom ta'arosoi v'uva l'kohen, etc., etc. Look inside of this Or HaChaim HaKadosh. He asks the following questions. He says there's a lot of redundancy over here. Why do you need to give me this whole intro? This will be the laws, Zois toras haMetzorah. And then you could have just started Kit taheh haMetzorah v'uva l'kohen. On the day he becomes pure, he comes to the kohen when he doesn't have the symptoms of the illness on his skin. And that's it. Why do you have to have this whole intro? And although we do have it sometimes, but every time it raises a concern, and Chazal give us an explanation why that happens. And also this time the Chazal were explaining some mahalchim, as the Or HaChaim HaKadosh himself says one mahalach. But then he says, and you can also say the following, and this is what I want to share with you. And I am fascinated, dumbstruck, as they say, about how the Or HaChaim HaKadosh starts off in this Dvar Torah. Because he assumes, it's obvious to him, it's not even an assumption, it's obvious to him that when a person gets a sickness and you see symptoms on your body, such as the Metzorah, that he sees on his skin all kinds of symptoms of a disease, it is obvious it's rooted in his nefesh. Really, the body is just showing the symptoms, but it starts off from his nefesh. And he explains that it for sure comes from a place, b'derech hateva, of course, b'derech hateva, naturally speaking, it sounds like it's coming from a place where a person becomes sad for whatever reason it is, and he's not with people, and he becomes depressed, etc., etc. So b'derech hateva, what makes sense right now to cure him? B'derech hateva, you have to pull up his motivation, get him to be together with friends, get him nice clothes, etc., etc. But what did Hashem say? B'chochmasoi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said in this parsha, fakert, do exactly the opposite. This person that has tzaraat, which we know, the Torah tells us he has it because he used his mouth in the wrong way, which we know the mouth is a very holy thing. That's what differentiates between us and other beings such as behemoths. And we have the ability to use our mouth for kedusha, for davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for tefillah, for saying Sfiras HaOmer. There's mitzvahs that we do with our mouths, like Birkas HaMazon. And this person used his mouth to do an aveira, which is Lashon Hara. And hence he got this tzaras. But someone can say, it's naturally speaking, it makes sense. Sometimes a person gets sick. And it was obvious that if he does get sick, where is that coming from? It's coming from a place where he's not healthy on the nefesh side, emotionally, or whatever it is. Which we know, it amazes me because only thousands of years after many, many investigations, etc., and experiments, statistics are showing that there is a very highly correlated idea that a person gets sick because he's not healthy emotionally or mentally, and that causes physical issues. That was obvious to him, and therefore he says a person can say, "Hey, bederech hateva, naturally speaking, a thing comes, a thing goes. I'll do this, I'll do that." But he does say, though, Chaim, that the most obvious in svara thing, bederech hateva, that a person should do is get himself more motivated, be together with friends, always be happy. And we know, I already mentioned this once, the stipler. Someone came to the stipler and said, "My friend's very depressed. I don't know what to do." He says, "Depressed, that's a horrible thing. That is the worst thing that can happen. Once you're in depression, then everything you do with the person is a bachal levatala." Self-esteem is very important. And hence, whatever he likes, it happens to be that person likes to learn Torah, Baruch Hashem. But it doesn't matter, even if he liked to play basketball. He would tell him, get him into basketball again. Get him motivated. First, get his engine running. Then you can tilt it and give him momentum to the right direction. But first, get him motivated. Over here, he says, you got to find them people that will be happy to listen to his divrei Torah. And that's what he did, and it helped him. So too, the Chaim HaKodesh is saying it's obvious that everything comes from the nefesh. And hence, you have to get him motivated. But what happens over here? HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to make sure, Zok to Or HaChaim HaKadosh, that it's evident that this tzaras came. Why? Because he spoke Lashon Hara. And therefore, we're doing everything against the idea of this remedy that's so obvious, which is get him to be together with friends. No. Badad Yeshev Mechutz Lamachane. He has to go out and be on his own. And we rip his clothes, which is, if anything, Zok to Or HaChaim HaKadosh, this is counterintuitive for his cureness. If anything, this causes the disease he has. If one would try to argue that this is all coming from just a natural perspective, not because the sin this person performed. And hence HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, the Torah tells us, Dafka, he has to go mechutz lamachane, we rip his clothes, etc., etc. And at the end, he does get cured. Why? If he does tshuva, of course. But it'll be evident that it's only in the merit of tshuva that he became pure. And with that explains Or HaChaim HaKadosh. That's the whole shtickle Torah over here. That's why it's a whole parsha in itself. There's a lot of logic over here to why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing it this way. And that is all hinted in the words Zois tia Torah sa Metzora beyoim tahara soy. It's only on the day he becomes pure that then he will realize that the Torah is, the hidden message is that it's bischut the fact that he himself did tshuva, that now he's pure. And that's why it says later on in the pasuk, the pasuk after it says, V'ra Kohen, and the Kohen comes to see, and indeed he was cured. V'hine nirpa, if he sees that it was cured, then he goes to the next station, but it says, V'hine nirpa negad hatzaras min hatzarua. The tzarua is the person that had the tzaras. Obviously, we're talking about him. Who are we talking about? It's him. Why? It's also redundant. Explains Or HaChaim HaKadosh. No, it's screaming out the idea that it was cured because of him, min hatzarua. He himself did the cure. Why? Because he did tshuva. And it's evident because it can't be any other reason, because he's doing something that, if anything, should cause the illness to become worse. So there you have it. Or HaChaim HaKadosh is telling us the secret remedy to cure any disease a person has, and especially this tzaras, is doing tshuva. Harei, the main reason we get disease is to help us to knock on our door and say, do tshuva. Become a better person, more pure. Unfortunately, a lot of people, instead of looking in this direction, they run after getting a second, third, fourth opinion. And of course, we know that the Torah tells us, we have a schus, and we even have a chiyuv to go to a doctor. I'm not saying not, but at least in parallel, a person has to work on himself and do tshuva wherever he feels he's lacking and can get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We all know many stories, which I'm not going to mention now, about how people tried so many things to cure their illnesses through doctors and didn't help. But then when they took upon themselves something, it made a big difference. I'm just going to end with a story that I mentioned several times, but I think it's very fitting, so I feel like I have to say it again. But and this I know thanks to the cartoon books that my kids read. That one person came to the Baal Shem Tov and says, I'm really sick and no doctor's able to help me. I really don't know what to do. Please give me a bracha that things will work out. And he said to him, go to this very distant village. Over there's a great doctor. That's all he said to him. Everyone knows this doctor. Go to that doctor over there. So the person said, over there, it's going to take me 2 weeks with a horse and carriage just to get there. He says, that's my eitzah to you. So he went, and it wasn't easy in those days at all, to say the least. For 2 weeks, he's been traveling. Finally, he gets to the destination. And as he gets there, it looks like a very bombed out place. And he asks around and he says, where is the doctor over here? One person shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know. He went to another person, he just laughed at him. He goes, what do you mean? Where is the doctor? And all he did was point up to the sky, as if saying to him, the Eibishter, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the doctor. There's no other doctor here. And then he gave it all his guy and really davened to Hashem. He realized that it's not going to help to run after doctors. I have to daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I am moisif to that, to connect it to our idea. Of course, it's not enough just to daven. The idea of davening is avodah shebalev. We're connecting to Hashem. Every person knows if he's truthful to himself and if he has a true friend or a wife, a better half that can help him, or a husband that can help her, realize where he needs to work on himself and becomes a bit better. I have someone I'm very close with. I won't say the story he had, but he had a major issue that doctor said there is no cure for your issue. And I know him very, very well. And at the end, even though the doctors promised him there's no way you're going to get out of this issue, he told me, this is a big person also, that he doesn't even believe in all the segulas. But what he does know, not that he doesn't believe in the segulas, I shouldn't say that. He doesn't like to do the actions of the segulas because he thinks Chazal tell us the best thing to do. Learn Torah, do chesed, and do tshuva. And those will help you out in life. And that's the idea we're saying. A person has to do tshuva. That is the master cure for all remedies. At least we have to do the ishtadlus that way, because even if you don't get the end result we want, there's no doubt that it will bring us, all of Klal Yisrael, a step closer to redemption. Yiratzoin, that will take this idea from the Or Chaim HaKadosh and utilize it. And every time something comes our way that's not exactly on the surface, doesn't exactly seem to be good for us, which we know it's all good, really, Kadosh Baruch Hu does good, but we should leverage that situation into doing tshuva and getting closer to Hashem, and that might just be the cure for the issue we're facing. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you for joining us. This is the Prism of Torah. Visit our website, prismoftorah.com, where you'll find a full archive of hundreds of past Divrei Torah. Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends and family. Sponsorship opportunities are available for all of our episodes. Thank you, Yona Vefa, for your recording equipment. Produced by Eli Podcast Productions.